あそこにもあなた方は活動の地盤を持っておられる。チャイナタウン。
わかりました。それではユエルンをお貸ししましょう。
ユエルン、月の竜ですか。
そうです。闇を支配する月です。
Okay, I confess!
I will admit I was a little late to the banana fish hype. I didn't know this series existed until 2020, but man have I been missing out. This series is like really, really good. The characters, the plot, they're all just so amazing and lovable and complex, and it's sad and it's perfect and it's... Oh my god, it's amazing! I knew I had to talk about it sooner or later. I already have 2 more videos planned after this one, so if you're a Banana Fish fan, please stick around for those. Banana Fish are gonna be one of my favorite animes for a very long time. You guys, I'm going to be talking about it a lot, so if you haven't watched Banana Fish yet, please go ahead and go do that because you won't regret it. So my favorite character is Yutlung. This dude is like hated, if not like overlooked amongst the fandom. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I see nobody talking about Yutlung. I mean, maybe there's like 5, maybe 6 people, like, you know, there's not a lot. And I have an idea why Yutlung Lee is like responsible for a lot of the things that went wrong in Banana Fish. I won't lie, but I think Yutlung also has one of the better developments, if not the best development in Banana Fish as a whole. Don't at me, he's my favorite character. So I'm here to explain to you who Yutlung is, and why he does everything he does, and why he gets better, and why he should be your favorite character too. My main goal is to maybe change some people's minds about him and not just hate on him because he's an antagonist. I know some people who prefer Dino's character over Yutlung's, and I think that's saying something. I'll also try not to be too self-explanatory since Yutlung is a side character and he's harder to find information on. I'll leave all the links to my references in the description below, so please go check them out if you're still interested. Finally, spoiler warning! I'm going to be talking about Banana Fish's plot, so if you haven't watched it, like I said earlier, go watch it! I'll stick to more of the anime rather than the manga, but I will be mentioning Yasha and Garden of Light. You don't have to. It's not much, though. Be aware. Without further ado, let's go ahead and meet our Yutlung Lee. Yutlung Lee was the youngest out of 7 children. He was considered a bastard child since the Lee line was very carefully selected. After a long time of arranged marriages with rich and intelligent families, and quite possibly even incest, Emperor Honglung fell in love with a girl he wasn't supposed to. She was a poor street vendor's daughter who was used as a concubine by Honglung. She was the youngest mistress, and was taken care of the most gently by the emperor and his staff. She was only 10 years old when she officially became his mistress, until she eventually gave birth to the emperor's son at the very young age of 15, becoming the youngest wife. Yutlung was born in Hong Kong and was instantly recognized as the emperor's final son due to his old age of 65. Despite ruining the perfect Lee bloodline, the emperor not only slept with Yutlung's mother but also helped father his bastard son for 6 years. Honglung taught him how to read and write, along with many other skills that he might find useful in the future. Yutlung was very energetic and hopeful at the time. He also resembled his mother. The family was seemingly normal, aside the large age gap. Yutlung himself described their relationship as grotesque. After Honglung died of old age, the other sons struggled to determine who would be the next heir. Typically, the eldest is chosen, but this isn't always the case. Emperors can be chosen by ministers and sometimes even the country through wars and disputes. All of the half-brothers had a slight fear of losing a part of their inheritance to Yutlung. You have to remember that Yutlung's mother doesn't exactly have the best reputation. She comes from like the lower class and she's done a lot of scandalous things with the emperor when she was only like 10 years old. It's a whole thing. Honglung Lee, Yutlung's eldest sibling, eventually took the lead. And since a lot of spite grew around his whorish mother, Yutlung witnessed her being raped and killed by his half-brothers when he was only 6 years old. He was held back by Hualong's arms, his brother, who was the 5th son of the emperor. She was 21 at the time of her death. This event forever changes the way Yutlung views his family, himself, and love, and the way his family treats him. Yutlung goes to live with his aunt and uncle afterwards, and is raised as a tool for his brother. It is heavily implied throughout the first few interactions with them that Yutlung was raped by them. Being used as a token of friendship was probably a common reoccurrence given Yutlung's rather calm expressions during the scene where he is taken as a hostage. Since he resembled his mother's appearance, his brothers more likely treated him as the mistress his mother was. Maybe even forcing him to wear women's clothing. Along with treating him as an object, nobody really mentions him as the son of the Lee clan either, keeping his entire existence a secret. He was forced to study sciences, specifically acupuncture and herbology, by his eldest brother Wang Lung. The relationship between his brothers is one of the many differences between him and Ash, despite their similar backgrounds. Even with his rough surroundings, Ash had grown up with a caring older sibling who he could look up to, unlike Yutlung, who had no one to truly give him any sort of love except his parents, who were both dead by the time he turned 6. The two characters are compared more throughout the series. Continuing with Yutlung's history, while he lived with his aunt and uncle, his school suggested that he should live in the Dawson household as a member member of their staff instead. The Dawsons were probably well-known scientists. The brothers were responsible for creating drugs for the government, including banana fish. He was allowed in due to his intelligence and was even formally adopted by the family. At 16, he graduated Eastbridge Senior High, earning a full ride to university, specifically Southern California Institute of Technology and Science University, with a scholarship to study computer science. Living under the fake name Yossi Donson and being submissively loyal to his brothers, Yutlung spends his life concealing his emotions and accepting his role. Or until he is assigned to give orders to Shorter Wang. Shorter first meets Yutlung as Yossi and compares him to Eiji after he disguises himself as a captive in his own home. Shorter then meets Wang Lung in Chinatown after being suspicious of Yossi and trying to learn more about him. Once Shorter sees Yutlung's tattoo on his neck, signifying that he's a Li, Yutlung is quick to cover it. This is an early sign showing that Yutlung does not want to be associated with the Li clan at all. Yutlung then specifically orders him to kidnap Eiji as bait for Ash after he witnessed their bond in the computer room and outside on the balcony. Yutlung already knows that love is an effective target since that's already happened to him in the past with his mother. He grows a special interest towards Ash, knowing that they both have lived similar lives and viewing him as a perfect rival. Or maybe even a perfect friend, I don't know. I mean, they have a lot in common. He could probably, relate to each other. He also starts to grow a small hatred for Eiji. He's jealous because he's childishly innocent compared to him, and Ash is able to become friends with him for absolutely no reason. It's like Eiji is this completely different dude. He's an alien, and yet he's friends with the guy he wants to be friends with. Jealousy. After figuring out Eiji would be used as bait, Shorter tries to attack Yutlung and gets another emotion out of him. While Shorter stabs the knife into his hair, he cries, his tears landing on Yutlung's face. Shorter explains how he used to respect the Lees, but now he feels betrayed by them. Yutlung looks up at Shorter in awe, letting the tears drop down onto his cheeks. Once Shorter leaves, Yutlung silently sips up, wiping his tears and holding onto the knife Shorter attacked him with. We can tell he agrees with Shorter about his views on the Lee family, but he still can't say how he truly feels yet. This also shows that Yutlung relies on others to do the emotional work for him, as shown through Shorter's tears. Being taught that hatred is the only way to survive growing up with his half-brothers and being constantly used by the people around him, his fear of love and affection grows as his brothers mistreat him. After Yutlung successfully captures Eiji, bringing him and Shorter back to New York, Wang Lung is incredibly creepy towards him, and we witness Wang Lung's abuse. Yutlung is dressed up and taken as hostage by Dino in order to gather more information about him. Yutlung and Eiji share a brief interaction when Dino tries to sleep with both of them. Although they were compared to each other earlier on, we see now that they are completely different people. Eiji is everything Yutlung could have ever wanted in a life, from a happier childhood to an ignorance towards the violence that he deals with every day. Yutlung doesn't want anything more than to be seen as a normal human being, and Eiji is living proof of that. The normal world exists, Yutlung is mind blown by this kinda. And unlike Ash, Yutlung kinda hates him for it. He harshly tells Eiji to toughen up if he ever wants to understand Ash. Eiji is hurt by this, but knowing that love leads to no good outcome, Yutlung was being pretty generous. During the dinner party, both Ash and Yutlung are forced to dress up for Dino's pleasures. The parallels between them is shown, and they are truly like the yin and yang team, sharing many similarities and differences. Ash and Yutlung have both been groomed and used by older men, pimped out to creeps, and were even trained to have an amazing intelligence in a specific field. Both are viewed as prizes rather than people, and both suffer mentally from their trauma, dealing with suicidal thought and severe depression. They also share many differences. For example, Yutlung comes from a family of power, whereas Ash comes from nothing. He's a runaway. Ash is expected to rise into leadership, while Yutlung is not. He is discouraged. Ash is a rare gem, according to Dino. Yutlung is just an ordinary guest. Well, he's a guest treated better, but he's still a guest. Ash holds his rebellious nature until he breaks. Meanwhile, Yutlung is pretty quick to give up, and he spends his time quietly observing his surroundings. Ash is also physically stronger than Yutlung, who relies more on his intelligence and manipulating others. In the end, Ash just wants to escape. Yutlung wants to take control. During the dinner party, Ash is taken away, and Yutlung witnesses the effects of banana fish through Shorter's death. He feels guilty, which is unusually humane considering Yutlung's cold personality. He goes to free Ash quickly afterwards, Ash briefly mistaking Yutlung as Eiji. Understanding how it feels to lose someone you love, Yutlung quietly states,
君でも弱音を吐くんだね。
Yutlung helps Ash for a short while, numbing Abraham Dawson's legs with his needle and taking the rest of Banana Fish with him. After escaping, Yutlung befriends Sing, who has just found out about Shorter's death. They spend some time together, gradually becoming friends. Though Sing compares Yutlung to Ash, Sing is also very similar to Eiji. He is able to call out Yutlung. He calls him out for who he doesn't want to be and is shown to be supporting of him. Even though Sing doesn't know that much about him, Sing idolizes Ash though, despite wanting to fight him for killing Shorter. And I think Yutlung can somehow relate to that, wanting to fight Ash as his perfect direct rival, but also wanting to protect him because he doesn't want Ash dealing with any more stuff, or at least for now. That gets worse, we'll talk about that later. The next time we see Yutlung is when he bails AG and Sing out of jail. He casually abducts AG in front of the police station and locks him in his room, which I thought was kind of funny because none of the police seem to care about that. He then reveals to Sing that he poisoned his brother Hualong with banana fish earlier, maybe when Hualong came into that one room after Sing left. Reminder, Yutlung has all of the banana fish from Dino's grip, and he has the power to use it on anyone he chooses. Just a minor detail I think the show completely overlooks. He goes to another room to explain to AG that Ash needs no friends, saying that Ash is just a wild beast who only needs people who defy or idolize him. He says this to more likely convince himself that he doesn't need anybody. He is irritated only because he doesn't think AG or anyone like him would be able to understand his pain.
I mean, that's completely valid. Everybody kind of has that moment in their life where someone's like, oh, I totally understand what is going on in your life because this happened to me, and it's completely different, you know? And like, how would they know anyway? They weren't physically there with you. I mean, AG is literally just an ordinary guy from like happy-go-lucky Japan. He can literally go back to Izumo or whatever and just live his normal life. He is so normal. After Ash's death is broadcasted, AG goes batshit and manages to trick Yutlung, putting a knife against his neck. Yutlung willingly follows him, telling his guards to do what he says. Sing is amongst the guards, but he reacts rather differently. You would expect Sing to go after AG, but he doesn't. Even when Yutlung tells Sing to leave him alone, Sing watches Yutlung walk away for a few seconds before following after him anyway. Sing and AG get together to save Ash, but Yutlung still has the upper hand. He watches things unfold from afar most of the time. When Dino returns, he calls for him under Hualong's name and offers him a deal to kill 5 other members of the Corsica Foundation who are stopping Dino from taking full control. In return, he asks for Dino to kill all of his brothers, excluding Hualong, including their wives and kids. After proposing to kidnap AG by using Blanca towards Dino, Hualong summons Yutlung after finding out Dino has been visiting the mansion. It is then a parallel from episode 9 happens. Dino's guards shoot Hualong after he reminds Yutlung that the blood he is trying to exterminate includes him. Yutlung is well aware of this already though, but it still makes him feel uneasy. Also, fun fact, the tattoo on his neck seems to disappear after episode 12. This could just be a minor detail with the animating, but if not, it signifies Yutlung straying farther away from obeying his family, I guess. After Hualong dies, Hualong takes his place as president of the bank, Yutlung as his counselor. Yutlung then works with Dino and Blanca to meet Ash in this weird garage place. Yutlung hands Ash his gun, telling him to shoot himself, promising if he did, he wouldn't hurt AG anymore. Without truly understanding love though, he underestimates how much AG actually means to Ash, who instantly put the guns to his head and pulls the trigger. He even asks for more bullets after finding out that the gun was empty, and Yutlung is completely baffled by this. Remember, he hasn't experienced any sort of love for the last 10 years. He has forgotten what it feels like to care about someone that much, and doesn't understand why Ash would go so far. He tells Ash AG will die in 48 hours unless he hands over the banana fish information, and that Ash will have no choice but to go back to the prostituting life that he has grown up. Ash accepts. Yutlung is once again left astounded and tries to convince Ash into rejecting the offer, worrying about him like he lost his mind. Accepting the deal though, Yutlung watches Ash with slight guilt. After Ash is sent back to Dino, Yutlung asks Blanca if he would like to work with him. Blanca instantly refuses and Yutlung quickly admits to wanting AG dead. Yutlung even teases AG to commit suicide by jumping out of a window. This could just be a bluff, but Yutlung sounds pretty serious. This is because not only is Yutlung jealous of AG now, Yutlung has recently lost his brothers, and now he has no one else left to hate. He aims his frustrations towards AG since he needs someone to hate in order to live. It's kinda like giving a child chocolate for a week and then taking it away from them. They're gonna start craving chocolate again, even though it's bad for them, you know? After getting caught up with his own personal matters, he starts losing the friendships that he was beginning to build, and Sing starts to lean towards Ash. Yutlung consistently asks for Blanca to work for him, inviting him to many dinners until he finally meets up with him in his hotel. He blackmails him, threatening him with his past, leaving Blanca no choice but to give in. The lead tattoo returns to his neck on episode 19. Blanca serves as his bodyguard for the next few episodes, promising only to hurt others when he is harmed, while he still has Blanca and Sing at his side. This is the calm before the storm. Yutlung and Ash parallel once again at another dinner party. This time, Yutlung seemingly has more power than this frail Ash. He thinks highly of himself since he finally is being treated as a person. This is quickly reversed as AG and Sing storm the party. Yutlung orders Blanca to kill AG, but Blanca refuses since he isn't physically hurting Yutlung. After the storm is over, Yutlung immediately apologizes to Dino, admitting that Sing was one of his friends. Dino kind of foreshadows their future tensions when he says,
下々に至るまで目の届かぬは致し方のないこと
Yutlung doesn't want to lose the alliances between Dino and him right now. This is the first time in Yutlung's life that he has been talked to as an individual. He has been praised and complimented for his plans, and unlike Ash, who is willing to give it all up for AG, Yutlung is deathly afraid of going back to where he was. Once Ash escapes. Once Ash escapes. Say that 3 times fast. Yutlung quickly becomes greedy. Wanting to take Ash all to himself rather than to share him with Dino, he and his guards drive over to the National Museum of History to perform one of the greatest fight scenes of all time in anime. Ash single-handedly takes down most of Yutlung's guards in the dark. Meanwhile, AG's group is discovered in the underground sewer. It is only a matter of time and a battle between who has the upper hand. Once Kane's group arrives to attack Yutlung, Ash kills one of Yutlung's guards and captures Yutlung by wrapping his hair around his neck. It is at this moment that AG is also captured. In the end, AG runs free. Ash kicks Yutlung down a flight of stairs and stabs Blanca in the arm, signifying the end of the battle. Dino lets Yutlung go after hearing what went down. Yutlung has reached his limit now. He has lost everything he has built to Ash, just as Arthur and many others have. He uses his past hatred to fuel his revenge once more, this time completely towards Ash. He kills many of Sing's gang members in Chinatown, leaving Yao Yuntai. Lao was Shorter's best friend and Sing's stepbrother. However, he dislikes how Sing was recently working together with Ash, since Ash was responsible for Shorter's death. Yutlung threatens to kill Sing if he doesn't kill AG first, but Lao struggles with killing an innocent person. Yutlung devotes the rest of his time hoping that Lao and some of Sing's gang members have enough guts to kill AG. He doesn't realize how much this could actually hurt Ash, and Blanca watches over him as they wait for news. Blanca warns Yutlung throughout episode 22 until he decides to go speak to Ash. Yutlung refuses against this, but he eventually tells him the address of where Ash is located, knowing that Blanca would go no matter what. Even after creating alliances with both Sing's gang members and Blanca, Ash had won over their hearts, and Yutlung felt as though he was constantly being abandoned. Sing figures out that Yutlung is behind AG getting shot, and that Blanca is working with Ash. He says that he won't be able to forgive Yutlung for going that far. Ash states that and it's honestly kinda sad. Blanca returns safely and finds Yutlung drinking champagne by himself. Yutlung then reveals his past to Blanca while he's drunk, being able to completely express himself and more emotion than usual, and also becoming more vulnerable. He compares himself to Ash and wonders why Ash isn't doing the same thing he is. They both have been forced to grow up on a difficult past, and yet Ash doesn't try to take his revenge out on others. When he does, AG tries to stop him, and Yutlung sees this as a burden rather than help. Yutlung thinks that he and Ash both deserve to be upset and deserve to take it out on the cruel world. But Yutlung shouldn't use this as an excuse to hurt other people, like he has done throughout the series. From murdering all of his brothers using one like a puppet, to plotting on assassinating AG, everything he has done is completely out of spite, like his half-brothers did to his mother. He was letting the anger that was growing inside of him take full control over his logic. Once Blanca tries to pity him, Yutlung slaps his hand away, and he runs away with his head down low. Blanca ends the contract and decides to leave Yutlung's residence. Yutlung ironically tells him,
だからあなたも市場で行動するってわけ
since he knows that Blanca is leaving to protect Ash. Blanca tells Yutlung that he needs to learn how to love by telling his own past. Can we also talk about how Natalia looks kinda like Ash? Blanca knows that if AG is taken away from Ash, Ash will lose his shit. However, if Blanca even cared, he should have known that his choice of leaving Yutlung would also make Yutlung lose his shit. Blanca argues, you cannot be loved unless you love, but this is something that Yutlung can't really control. He cares about others, but he doesn't consider those emotions to be love, since he knows that love is dangerous. Blanca is basically contradicting himself here, telling that Ash needs to let AG go, while telling Yutlung to find an AG? There's also kind of a slight mistranslation. When Blanca tells him that you'll find someone one day who will love you, Yutlung replies with never! However, listening to what he actually says, he says, いるかそんなの! Which basically means that doesn't exist. In the manga, he says, oh, come off it, which is a better way than saying just never. Yutlung doesn't believe anyone would ever love him because he knows that he's evil and he doesn't want to put anyone else at risk, like his mother. Ash didn't believe anyone loved him either, thinking that if AG had seen his monstrous side, he would leave him. Blanca finally leaves, abandoning Yutlung in his room and never seeing him again. Knowing what we know of Yutlung, he wouldn't understand why Blanca even left in the first place. After being completely vulnerable around him, sharing his past, and even trusting him to protect him, Blanca still chose Ash over him. Didn't he technically love Blanca? I'm not saying I ship them, I'm just saying Blanca was kind of an asshole for leaving Yutlung, you know? You're not even gonna... Yutlung opened up to you, man. He opened up to you! Skip to the end of episode 24. I still think Ash drilling into Fox's face is so satisfying, and I think Blanca's a bitch for just watching everything unfold, but we'll talk about that in another episode. I hate Blanca so freaking much! Sing goes over to Yutlung's mansion, and Yutlung is being an angry drunk. Although they share some petty remarks, Sing pulls out a gun. Yutlung stands up to his feet. He smiles, reassuring Sing to kill him, but Sing doesn't, telling him that Blanca told him everything about his past. What an asshole, am I right? Sing calls Yutlung out for following his half-brother's steps. He reminds him that the Li blood runs through him, no matter how far he tries to run from it, and that he's already avenged his mother. He tells him that his punishment is to keep on living and to bring peace back to the Chinatown that he has taken part in ruining.
And that's why I love Sing so much, because not only did he just give Yutlung a reason to live, he also kind of gave him a purpose, or at least something to do with his life, you know? But also, like, Sing, your stepbrother just died. How are you so calm?
Yutlung starts tearing up when he hears this, not thinking that he deserves a second chance and that he'll never be good, though he could just be emotional because he's drunk. I'm sure that slap from Sing knocked him back to reality for a bit, but Sing pushes him. He supports Yutlung, and now that he knows his past, Yutlung can finally open up to someone else about his true feelings. Since Blanca is an asshole and doesn't know how to After the events of Banana Fish, Sing and Yutlung are shown to have a continuing friendship. They talk to each other in Garden of Light and work together by exchanging information through the phone. Yutlung mostly spends his time working in China handling economics. He still has a slight distrust towards Chinese government. They talk about Ash for a short while and praise his work despite only being around 17 or 18 years old. Yutlung notices the sound in Sing's voice and mentions that Sing must still really admire him. This makes Sing kind of defensive, but something really beautiful happens later on. Yutlung admits to having responsibility for how he and Eiji feels and tells him that he should do whatever he needs to do to heal. But he also advises Sing to stay strong and leave his past behind, just as Sing has told him in the past. Yutlung has really grown with Sing at his side and is able to accept who he is and what he's done. He used to hate Eiji, now he feels sorry for him. I could just be geeking out. I think that's really, really nice. Separating the old pain from himself and becoming someone better, Yutlung continues to work with Sing through Yasha, having a mutual care and respect for each other. He trusted Sing with his finances and gives him a share of his power, despite not sharing any family bloodline with him. Yutlung was then assassinated by the Vietnam Mafia at the age of 31 or 32, since Sing is 30 in Yasha and Yutlung is 2 years maybe older than him. I don't know the math. Sing's first priority was to destroy the people who had anything to do with it in the next 24 hours, wiping out an entire organization in a single night. Up until the very end, Sing was there for him, proving that love was exactly what he needed to live a more normal life.
Yutlung's history teaches an important lesson that I think a lot of people nowadays should also learn as well. No matter how upset you are or how bad your life is going right now or how bad your childhood was, this isn't an excuse to take it out on somebody else. You can have every valid reason in the world to be upset. Taking it out on somebody else, it's not going to do anything. It's an endless cycle. Also, kids deserve that unconditional love and support and affection because hate is obviously taught through actions. Finally, it's never too late for a second chance. You can always ask for help and make a change in your life. I mean, death isn't the only way out. The only person in the world who probably doesn't deserve a second chance is that guy because he actually deserves death. Also, can we appreciate our friends more? Because dang, Sing.
One of the major themes against Banana Fish is to fight against the fate that you were born into, but Yutlung is a more complicated case. He is a ticking bomb, waiting to go off and annihilate every single person that he sees. Despite doing his best and succeeding at taking over the Li clan, he has already embraced his place beforehand. His hatred for himself is similar to Ash's, sometimes scared of being who he is and feeling completely alone despite being surrounded by people. However, unlike Ash, who has Eiji to take some of the burden and the blame off of him, Yutlung has absolutely no one. Once he starts to trust Blanca and Sing, they turn against him to join Ash's side. This is partly because Ash accepts the fact that he needs help and support, whereas Yutlung tries to do everything himself. His hair can be viewed as a symbol for this. According to Garden of Light, kinda, Eiji keeps it long for Ash and cuts it off after he comes to terms with his death. Sing keeps a small ponytail after Yutlung's death. So the significance of hair in Yoshida's series would make the most sense if Yutlung kept it long for his mother's death, which he never truly got over. So in a sense, his hair is a reminder and a way for Yutlung to relive his trauma. When Shorter attacks Yutlung in the beginning, he stabs him in his hair. When he's sent as a hostage, someone is fixing his hair. Yutlung himself also constantly touches his hair, twirling his fingers around strands or grabbing it tightly. His hair being grabbed and used against him could also be seen as a metaphor for how men have tossed him around and how Yutlung accepts his role in life. As manipulative as Yutlung is, he probably knew that his hair would have appealed to many others as it did for Dino. So he kept it that way, to charm these older men in positions of power, learning more about them in secret. And the fact that people use it against him, maybe it's like his past being used against him, I don't know.
I'm just rambling at this point. The red string within his hair can also be associated with the Asian red thread of fate. His fate is drawn to Ash or Sing, who he meets at the very end of the episode. Sing also has this red thread at the end of his weapon, indicating that the two are fated to cross paths more often later on. The string is also associated with the moon, which is part of Yutlung's name. So there was a lot more that I initially wanted to talk about, including Yutlung's name, where it came from, the fact that he speaks Cantonese while other Chinese characters speak Mandarin Chinese, and the symbolism behind wine glasses and how often they break around him except for the scenes where he's talking about his past. And I don't know, I feel like there's a bunch of hidden meanings and secret little details about Yutlung, but I have already been talking about him for the last 3 hours. I have no time to edit this, and you guys are probably bored out of your mind, so I'm just gonna go straight into the outro from here. There's a pun at the very end if you want to stick around for that, but other than that, enjoy your day. I had so much fun talking about this. Thank you for watching. If you have anything else to kind of add into it, please leave a comment below. I love reading about Yutlung, and I don't see enough of it, so you know. Bye!
So now I'm just gonna put puns at the end of every video. You guys ready for this? Alright, yeah? Okay. What is Ash's favorite type of car? A Jeep. Do you get it? 'Cause AG and a Jeep. Okay, I'm done.